Hello and welcome to Onion Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torridon, and I'm joined again by my friend Chris. This is the second time we've tried this live stream. So hopefully we can hear you this time, Chris.
Good morning, Daniel. Can you hear me?
There we go. We can hear you all the way over from Cleveland, Ohio. So we were just talking about the weather like you do. It's supposed to be winter here, but it's like really sunny. Because it's Australia.
Yeah. Now, is that something that you've already adjusted to?
Yeah, I mean it's not too bad at the moment because it is sunny and it is warm, but it's not like blistering heat. I mean the temperature today is, let's have a look. It's we're at 18. Yeah, it's 18 degrees C today, which is like just a nice sort of temperature back in the UK. Yeah. That's like a nice a hot day in the UK. But over here, it goes up to like 34 degrees sometimes. It's been known to go up to 40, Mariella reckons. So this Brit is going to be melting in the real summer when it comes.
I wish that my brain was doing the arithmetic between Celsius and Fahrenheit, because I haven't a clue what 40 degrees Celsius is in Fahrenheit. Any idea?
Oh, God. Hold on a minute. Hey, Google. What's 18 degrees Celsius?
18 degrees Celsius is equivalent to 64.4 degrees.
64 degrees.
Okay. Yes, that's a nice mild day. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's permanent sunshine here. Unlike in the UK, like I was telling you earlier, unlike in the UK, it always seems like it's dark at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then it gets light, and then it's dark again by about 3 p.m. But I'm probably exaggerating.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had some amazing. Sorry, Chris, didn't catch you there. Say again.
Oh, just saying, it's not dissimilar here. Especially in the winter. I mean, boy, it's pretty dark by 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
pretty dark.
We've had some amazing storms this last few evenings, like really big ones, like the old fork lightning and
really
everything. Yeah, and it's been like directly above us as well, so it's like felt like any moment the house is going to get hit, you know.
Did now so you're relatively new to Australia. Did Mariella say that it was an unusually bad storm?
No, they are fairly frequent actually. Since I've been here, we've had quite a few. They're like kind of almost like tropical storms, you know, the type they're warm, but loads of rain, but the rain is hot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You get a lot of thunder and lightning.
Yeah. Sheet lightning, the old fork lightning. It was funny as well because I'd just done I'd just been preparing for a podcast about the subject of Armageddon. So when I was a Jehovah's Witness, one of the things that was like sort of rammed down our throat was that Armageddon was coming. Yeah, that God was going to destroy everybody that wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, and it was always kind of depicted as this sort of end of the world sort of scenario with lightning and hailstones the size of cars that will be taking people out and all this sort of thing, you know. And I'd just be writing this podcast transcript all about how I don't believe in Armageddon anymore. And then this lightning storm started, and I thought, hang on a minute, maybe I've offended somebody.
Well, yeah, we're hearing some. I want to say doom and gloom, but it's climate catastrophism. So it's just it's hurricane season and there's things going on, and so you're hearing more and more about whether it's caused by climate change, and I'm skeptical to a certain degree, but we had some pretty gnarly storms here also, and Daniel, I promise you, I have never seen sustained lightning for so long. Yeah. I mean, it was like 40 minutes of nonstop flashes of lightning. It was unbelievable.
Yep.
Never seen anything like it.
And it can be quite scary as well, can't it? Yeah. So we're going to kick back and have a little live stream today Got loads of stuff
Yes, sir.
loads of stuff to catch up with you. I'll just give you a bit of an overview of what I got here. I think you wanted to talk about duality for a bit, didn't you?
I do, yes.
Duality, and that fits in nicely with something I've been looking at, which is all about consciousness and free will, whether or not free will actually exists. And I want to talk about the branching universe theory, and also have you heard of the one electron theory?
Yes.
The one
It's possible we talked about this before, but that's John Wheeler's single electron theory.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we
yes.
have talked about that on this show before. I've talked about it on my Twitter feed.
Okay.
But it was one of those things where I'd kind of sat there thinking really, really deeply and come up with this theory about one particle and thought, wow, I wonder if I've got a great idea here. And then someone on Twitter said, oh, no, someone's already thought of that years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I bumped into that. Yeah, I did bump into that, and that's pretty fascinating. We should definitely talk about that. In fact, It ties into something I've been reading, a fictional story I've been reading that I want to talk to you about also. Have you ever heard of C.S. Lewis' Out of the Silent Planet? It's a sci-fi novel.
I've read some of C.S. Lewis. I've not read that one. I've read C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters.
Yes, that's a good one. Yes,
they're good.
But these are, they're sci-fi fiction, but like C.S. Lewis does, he weaves in all these religious ideas, and like he did with the Narnia books.
Yeah.
So it's been really fascinating. I'm going to do episodes on each one of their. It's a 3-book series, and I'm going to do episodes on each one. But there's something in there that ties in. So I'll save it.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, so we'll do a bit. We'll do a bit of C.S. Lewis. That sounds good. And if we got time as well, a bit of Da Vinci Code. I've been watching the Da Vinci Code, the Angels and Demons, and Inferno film with Mariella. She'd never seen them before. So I thought I'd introduce her to those.
Nice. Well, how did she respond to them?
Yeah, loved them. Yeah,
good.
She loved the first one, loved the second one less, loved the third one less again. So we should have watched them in reverse order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there we go. I've just recently we've just finished watching the entire Marvel universe. Every single film from Iron Man in chronological order, all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How long did that take you?
That's taken months. I mean, I've lived here since February, so we started in February and we only recently finished, yeah. Oh, just some news for you. I think I may have told you. We got our civil partnership come through, so we're now civilly partnered, me and Mariella, which is nice.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. And planning to get married at some point. And then we got my visa through as well, my temporary visa, which now allows me to stay here in Australia for 2 years.
Very nice. Good.
2 years, and then after that we'll see where we go. Right. So, do you want to kick it off with a bit of duality? Tell me what's been on your mind, Chris.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, I can definitely kick it off with duality. So, when you and I first met, I was in a phase where I was getting into panpsychism as an idea. I was introduced to the idea, and I was kind of fascinated by it. Okay. So if you remember our first conversations, it probably came up a little bit more. And for those people who don't know, the idea of panpsychism, it means that all is psyche. Pan meaning all, psyche obviously. So everything is psyche, everything is mind, everything is conscious. And it's a kind of a hippy dippy thing. When you hear it the first time, you're like, yeah, well, that's something that hippies say, or if you're doing psychedelics, you're probably up that alley. And I'm not entirely innocent of either of those charges, I'll say. But I sort of, and of course, the idea of panpsychism is just that matter and mind aren't separate things. They're really one thing. So it's just one argument to reconcile this idea that we're all familiar with, that we're made of a mind and a body, that we have a soul or a mind and a material body. And, we sort of are accustomed to thinking of ourselves like that. And it's a religious idea, it's a Christian idea, but it's also like an Aristotelian idea. It goes back a long ways, that we're kind of two things. One of them is a spiritual thing, and one of them is a material thing. Dualism, we're two things, and never the two shall meet kind of thing. And I like the idea of panpsychism because it reconciled them, and that has the reason that appeals to me is because I believe that when we talk about spirit, we're talking about God. I don't really know how to define that well. Just roll with me on it, and that it's always been intuitive to me that God, if God exists, God is one. So if spirit exists, spirit is one, and the idea that the cosmos would come from God and somehow no longer be one was difficult for me to understand. It didn't seem intuitive. It didn't seem correct. I just really resisted it. And so panpsychism gave me like a way of making sense of it.
Yep.
Recently, though, I've been thinking a lot more about it. I've been thinking a lot more about the sort of traditional Christian notion of having a body and a soul. And I'm just struggling with it a little bit. And I don't really know how to get to the point, Daniel, so I'll try to beat around the bush a little bit. So, okay, so you've heard me say some of this before, but there's this idea, if we're talking about, while we're talking about Christianity, there's this idea that Jesus is both God and man, both matter and spirit at once.
Yep.
And Jesus is the incarnation of the Spirit made embodied, the Spirit embodied or made flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told this to you many times before. Is like I don't really see a difference between that description and the description of you and I as a embodied spirit.
Yeah.
Jesus was an embodied spirit. We are embodied spirits. That spirit is one, and so is God. In both cases, it's Jesus was God incarnate, and so are you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been thinking about this idea of like in the book of Genesis, when God breathes the Ruach Adonai, the breath of life, into the form of Adam and brings it to life, he's putting the Spirit of God into the material form and animating it. It comes to life with the Spirit of God having possessed the form.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and so there's this notion of possession, like spirit possession, and incarnation in the way that we would talk about Jesus, that don't seem to be different things. They seem to be different words for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just stop right there, because that's a little bit of a blasphemous sort of flavor to it, to suggest that possession and incarnation are somehow the same thing. What do you think about that?
Right, I've been making a few notes while you've been going through that. So, from an Advaitist point of view, Advaitist basically means there's only one, again, non-duality. That's the idea. In terms of Advaitism, everything is one, but there is the illusion of duality. So, for example, when you've got two people, there's an illusion that there are two people, but in actual fact, it's the same person, same consciousness. That makes things like, for example, reincarnation, spirit possession, that sort of thing, difficult, because if there's only one, what is it that's traveling between the different bodies? Yeah, that's initially what I thought when you were talking about that. Now, I was reading a good explanation on this a while back from an Advaitist teacher, and he was saying that if you imagine that there is one consciousness, so just one consciousness, call it one spirit, one God, whatever you want to call it, one consciousness, and imagine that one consciousness is like the sun, okay? And like the sun shines on everything, yeah? So like that, the one consciousness shines on all bodies. It shines on you, it shines on me, it shines on my dog, my cat, it shines on rocks and trees and all these other sort of things. So everything possesses, how can I put this? Everything is shone upon by the consciousness, but it's a case of whether or not the thing that the sun is shining on reflects the consciousness. So, for example, if you think of us as being like buckets, so that would be our body, and then the bucket is full of water, and that would be like our soul. the consciousness shines upon the water in the bucket, and it's reflected, and you've got an animated, conscious, sentient being in that case. Whereas if it's shining upon a rock, the consciousness is still there. It's shining on the rock, but it's not reflecting it in the same manner. It's quite good, isn't it?
And that's the distinction between animate and inanimate objects.
Animate and inanimate. And then what you've got with the reincarnation thing, when the water leaves the bucket, so when the life force leaves the bucket, that sun can still be shining upon that bucket, but because the reflective element has gone, it's no longer reflecting the actual consciousness. So that is now a dead bucket. It's no longer reflected. But that, whatever that is that leaves the bucket, that can move between that could find itself in a new bucket. Yeah. So it's that moves between it. It's not the consciousness that moves between it. It's not the consciousness. There's only one consciousness. But it's the reflective element, the element that. So what I'm saying on that is, a cabbage probably is conscious, but not to the degree we are.
Right.
It can't reflect the consciousness the same way as we are.
So this is so. I'll tell you what this brings to my mind, and this is weird, but maybe not so weird. We tend to think traditionally that our consciousness, our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it, it exists within our mind or within our self. It's contained within our self.
Yeah, we tend to, the scientific view these days tends to be that consciousness is a byproduct of the actual physical brain, yeah?
Right. And from a religious perspective, I have a soul within my body that is responsible for my life and animation and consciousness. It's within me, right? And the idea that you just painted for us is of it not existing within me, but shining down upon me. And this might be something like the receiver model, right? Consciousness is the wave coming in, and I'm the receiver, right? Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, the way that Advaita's person described it, he kind of split the consciousness into the reflective element, the water within the bucket, and an external consciousness. Personally, I would say that you could get rid of that soul idea within the person. You could just say that if the bucket is developed enough, you could swap bucket out for a mirror. You could have like a reflective surface that is not very reflective or very reflective. Yeah, the sun shines on it and it reflects depending on the extent to which that reflective surface is, clean or whatever. Yeah. I would say it's more. I would say the ability to reflect is probably a biological thing. It's to do with the evolution of the body and the brain. And the body and the brain in humans has reached a point where it can reflect that consciousness in a way that we translate as, sentience. Because I don't go with this whole idea that dogs and cats are just working on pure instinct. I think there's definitely a consciousness going on with animals. It's just maybe not as well developed as ours. Right.
Yeah, instinct is interesting. I don't think that it's like a mechanical cause and effect. No. I think it's clearly an animal is a sentient being. It's not sentient to the level of you and I.
Although in this a bit later in this conversation, not yet, but I'd like to get onto the thought of free will.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure that there is actually free will. I think we might all be instinctive.
Okay.
Continue though. I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No. I'm curious about when we get there, because I have an angle on this. I think we've talked about it before, but I have an angle on it. Okay, so here's my issue.
Yeah, this is with the duality.
With the duality.
Principle.
So I'm just going to symbolize this idea of duality using the story we were just talking about. The creation of Adam from the Bible. You've got the clay form.
Yep.
And you've got breath of God, the spirit and the body, right?
Yeah. So
And God
I'd
puts
say that's the bucket and the water. Okay.
the bucket and the water.
Yep.
Yes, yes. But if they're, what I'm struggling with is understanding the body and the spirit to be one thing, when the religious perspective would have it that the soul is put into it, like as though it were a different thing.
Mm.
It's like God creates the form, God creates the spirit, but God also is the form and is the spirit. So and maybe this is just a kind of a temporal, paradox that I'm going to struggle with as long as I'm living. But this is, and I know I'm not explaining it well, but this is the issue that I'm trying to describe, that I'm struggling with. I feel like there's some real wisdom, profoundness in the idea that the cosmos and individuals are in incarnation. So everything that exists materially is possessed by that same spirit, whether we're talking about a planet or a person or the entire cosmos. It's filled with spirit, and that's what animates it, and that's what's responsible for motion and action and cause and effect and entropy and gravity and everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say that was it Nikola Tesla said that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of vibrations. You talk about things like wind and gravity and different effects, electromagnetism, all these sort of things. I would say that that's all an effect of the consciousness working on the universe. So it's causing ripples in it. That's what I would say.
I don't make a distinction between the disembodied consciousness, the thing we're calling God, and the universe. I don't think there's a distinction.
Yeah. I see. Yep.
And I'm trying to understand how it is that it's one thing. And it's kind of the same question that you and I first talked about. It's kind of the same question I'm still struggling with.
Well, let's strip it back to the very, very basics in terms of vibrational. Yeah. You've got electromagnetism that works as a wave field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the frequencies, let's just say that is essentially what the universe is at its core. It's just vibrations, yeah. And those vibrations are crashing over each other, and that's where we get the illusion of a particle in a particular place, and one particle, two particles, then you've got an atom, then you've got a molecule, then you've got something bigger. But it's effectively just a crashing of a dance of kind of vibrations that are giving the illusion of the physicality of it, whether that's stars or planets or bodies or whatever. But at the essence, it's just vibrations. So could it actually be that let's reduce the consciousness. Let's say that is vibrations of some sort. Let's say that is the universal vibratory field, the consciousness, and that it's the consciousness itself that is producing everything that appears to be solid. So it's killing two birds with one stone. It's producing the physicality of the universe, but it's also producing the thought processes that go on in the human mind.
Yes, I like that. There's a lot about that I like. I like the idea that the picture you painted of the various waves interacting with each other. The interaction, the result of the interaction being the creation of more sophisticated patterns, and those patterns go from maybe like you might say like an energetic or a mental phenomena. And through increased complexity becoming an actual physical phenomena or the illusion of one. And I don't know which is the case, but it doesn't really matter which is the case.
Yep.
So here's what I would say. And again, I don't know if this is right, but it's like the medium, what's being acted upon, what are the waves in or of, what are they made of or what are they in, what is the medium that they're in. That to me is God, the medium.
The medium is God. Okay.
But also the excitations, that's God. So God is both the thing that exists and the action upon it that results in the creation of the material cosmos and consciousness and all that other stuff.
Well, what you're describing there sounds awfully similar to the quantum vacuum. Well, you can have like if you take a box and you put some space in it, so there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it as far as you're concerned, but there is when it's space. Space time is in that box, yeah. But if you were able to take even the space time out of that box, so there's absolutely nothing in there, like nothing. That would actually, particles would or vibrations would still arise within that box. So the quantum vacuum is the idea that you can never have nothing. If you think you've got nothing, all of a sudden you've got something again. Mm-hmm. So maybe the nothing is the now I see where that might be coming in. The nothing might be God is nothing and God is everything. God is the box with nothing in it, and God is the vibrations.
Yes.
And then okay. So maybe duality at that level is needed. Yeah, duality at that level is needed for anything to exist.
Yes,
and that would come. Sorry, that would come back very much to the Advaita or the Hindu idea in general, that you've got Brahman unmanifest and Brahman manifest. You have to have those two sides in order for something to. You've got to have nothing for something to exist.
Yes. There's something to that, Daniel. There's something to what you said that's profound and true. Whether we can make it clearer, I don't know, but there's something very true about that.
Let's try.
I wonder if the dualism is itself an illusion. Like the example that you brought up earlier, where you're talking about the waves interacting, and you actually said, it's almost like they crashing back into each other. And so in this image, you have the wave, which in this analogy is God. But when the wave crashes into the wave, which is also God, and folds back over onto itself, which is itself, then you see the tip of the wave pointing back down and observing itself.
Yes.
Right now you have the one thing with the perception of being two. It's almost like an image of self-consciousness looking in a mirror, right? The wave is crashing back onto itself. What's crashing back onto it? Itself, right? It's so, is that dualism? It is and it isn't.
It's a case of thinking about thinking again, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it dualism? I would say yes from the manifested point of view. It probably is dualism from the manifested point of view, because when the manifested universe, everything appears to be separate, doesn't it?
Right.
But then I think Hindus, particularly Advaitists, would say that is an illusion. It's not that it's not real. It's just that it's not the complete story. The complete story is that everything is one, and there are no separate things.
All right, let me throw a curveball at you before I forget it. So when you were talking earlier about consciousness shining down like the sun onto all the beings, imagine that same picture, but let's do it like this. I don't know what you call this. I'm not really sure the right phrase, but the trains or the trolleys that run through the town on the tracks, and they're electrified. And so, you put the train on the track, and whether it's hitting a power line above it or whether it's powered by the track itself, as soon as you put the train on the track, it's powered, it's going, right?
Yep.
You take the train off the track, it's not going anywhere. So imagine space.
Yep.
whatever it is like this electrified trolley track.
Mm-hmm.
And the electricity is consciousness.
Yep.
And every body that finds itself in space on that electrified track is then filled with, possessed by that electrical field. So rather than shining down on everything, imagine space being the source of the shining, and all the objects that are sitting on it or in it, planets and people and everything else are picking up the electricity and being animated, filled with that field that it's in. So I guess what I'm saying here is it possible that space, the thing that we look at and see as though it's nothing, and you just brought that up when you said God is both nothing and something, maybe that space that we look up at and say, oh, it's a vacuum, it's got nothing in it, it's got no properties or qualities, it's empty space, maybe that is significantly more. Maybe that is something way more fundamental. Maybe it's everything. Maybe it's God. I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but what do you think? Outer space.
Yeah. I think I know right from being very, very young. I'm talking like kind of 7 or 8 years old. I used to try and think of nothing. How do you get to nothing? And I could never get to nothing. Or even if I could imagine like a completely empty blank space, as a conscious entity, I still had the idea of up, down, back, forward.
Yes.
It was still a dimension of sorts. And I think that dimension is probably the container within which the vibrations probably occur. But the vibrations themselves, it's the actual space itself that's moving, isn't it? Or being distorted.
So this is another kind of strange thing, but I'll just put it out there. I don't know that there is a difference. Maybe there is. Between the space of imagination that you just described, when you're closing your eyes and you're trying to imagine nothing, and what you've got is an infinite, three-dimensional virtual space, and outer space, like physical space. Is there a difference between the space of our imagination and the space out there?
No, I don't think there is, because I think when you're thinking, I've mentioned this before in the podcast, when you're thinking, we've just got Mariella's popped on the live stream. She says the vacuum may well be God. It plays into the duality of nothingness to create something.
I love it, Mariella. I love it.
Chris is going like that. What was the question again? I forgot.
I've lost it.
I've lost it now. Yeah.
Listen, it must not have been that important.
The space. Let me just backtrack. So the space. Is there a difference between space in your head and space in space? When you're thinking, I've said this on a podcast before. When you're thinking, it involves time. Because like mentally, you're putting one thought after another.
Yes.
Yeah.
You did. Yes, you did.
It's only like kind of when you're meditating that you can sort of reach a point where you're not actually thinking of anything, and that's a really weird experience. But more often than not, it's a linear flow forward, isn't it? And I think from the Einstein's theory point of view, as soon as you've got time, you've got space. Time and space are completely connected. So I think it's entirely possible to have physical space created even from a conscious entity that's thinking. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, there's this strange fractal picture there that I like. I don't understand it, but I like it.
Can I share a Bible verse with you?
I would love it. Yes.
Let me just see if I can find this one. It's in Romans somewhere. This is one of those. Right. So I don't know if you've got a Bible there, have you? Romans 8 verse 39.
I do. It's over there though.
That's
Hold
okay.
on.
I'll read it
pull
to
it
you.
up.
What translation do you fancy? New International?
Listen, I'm old school. I like the King James version.
All right, we'll go with that then. Okay, King James a little bit slightly different version. We'll go with we'll go with New King James version. How's that? Because that's
All
a
right, fair enough.
little bit easier to understand. Right, it says nor height nor depth. This is Romans 8 verse 39. Nor height nor depth nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Nor height nor depth nor any other created thing. That implies that height and depth are a creation. Just the concept of height and depth, just the concept of left, right, up, down, three-dimensional space is a creation, and it's a creation of God's consciousness.
It's interesting because
so before that there would be before that height and depth there would be a zero-dimensional universe, which could be God himself, could be God itself.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know what a zero-dimensional universe is, but I'll tell you what that symbol means. It means the something that is everything. Exactly what you just said. It's the nothing that is everything. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Well, what happens, and I think we've looked at this before as well, what happens, I think, is you start from a base point of simplicity, and the simplest thing that you can have is nothing. The simplest form of dimension would be no dimension. Yeah? And then as creation begins, it gets more complex. So you end up with instead of nothing, you've got something. Instead of like no dimensions, you've got 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimensions, dimension of time, which I think is probably wrapped up with the first 3 dimensions anyway. But then, I mean, we may not be able to receive it or understand it, but there's other dimensions beyond our own, aren't there? So I think if you're looking for the God point, you've got to take things away. That's where the answer is. It lies in the simplicity, not in the complexity. So you're more likely to find answers about God, for example, looking on a quantum level than you are on a universe level. Because the smaller you get down to the quark, which is the smallest particle that we know of. At that point, I think you're knocking on God's door.
No, I would agree with that. So I want to go back to the image we were talking about the clay figure of Adam and the breath of God. Mm-hmm. And I want to give you a slightly different version of this and tell me what you think. So we can take a form, and let's call that a symbol. Let's call it a picture or a word. I can take a form, and I guess what I'm trying to do is make an analogy to language. So I take a form like the form of Adam. In this case, it's a symbol rather than a clay form. And I breathe the breath of God into it. In this case, it's something like meaning. So I've got a symbol, I have a word, and it's imbued with meaning. And there's something about this that reminds me of a human being, the form of a human being imbued with a soul. And because language is so connected to religion, whether we're talking about prayers or incantations or the name of God or any of these things, words are so important. The word itself, the logos. I wonder what you think of that idea. Like human beings create a form and imbue it with a spirit. That's a meaning, and we call that a word. And God created a form and imbued it with a spirit. And that is, in the Bible, is called the Word, the Logos. What do you think?
Okay, so the Word, coming from my Jehovah's Witness background, we used to say that the Word itself was Jesus in a pre-human condition alongside God. So, in the beginning, the Word was, and the Word was God. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God, yeah? The Logos. The Jehovah's Witness Bible has chosen to translate that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. They've kind of come up with this like dual thing at the beginning where you've got God and you've got Jesus, but Jesus wasn't called Jesus. He was called the Word, and he was God's first creation. So God created Jesus, and then together they created everything else. That's the JW idea. And then you've got Jesus. God then takes Jesus and he kind of squishes him down and puts him in Mary's womb, and then he's born as a man. Yeah, and that's where John says we had a glimpse of the glory of God because we saw the Word of God in human flesh. Yeah. I never really kind of bought into that when I read that. I didn't like the translation. I thought it was a better translation to say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this is the reason. Yes. I don't think that word in John 1:1 is actually talking about a separate conscious being. I think it is exactly what it says on the tin. It is the Word of God, the Logos of God, the logic of God, the thought process of God, the consciousness of God, the thought out plan of God. Yeah. You could say God himself, the Bible writer said, and the Logos was God. The same way as my thoughts are me. Yeah. And then in that John 1:1 situation, the Word of God, the very logic of God, the plan of God, the thoughts of God actually became embodied in a man, manifested as a man, and that man was Jesus. Yeah. So coming back to your point at the beginning, if that's what God could do with Jesus, this is from a scriptural point of view. If God can think himself into a man, effectively, that's what we're saying, that he manifested as a man, then yes, I think that's probably very much the same process that was going on with Adam, and probably the same as is going on with us. We are the manifestation of God, as indeed the entire universe is. Maybe the entire universe is the Word of God, the expression of God.
Well, see, I don't think there's a distinction between Logos and God. I think Logos is the Spirit of God, and I agree with you that it has connotations about order, the form and order and the plan and destiny. The Logos has all those connotations. But at least I choose to believe that there is no distinction. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Now that's interesting because it reminds me again of dualism, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, the Word was God and with God, right? So it's like the Word is one thing, and yet it's God and with God. So it's one and it's two. So even there, you have dualism creeping in, don't we?
Well, again, this is like my thoughts are me, but I can think about me.
See, I think the Hindus, the Vedists that you're talking about, would not agree with you when you say your thoughts are you. I think they would say that what you are is Brahman. And yes. Brahman doesn't have thoughts. Brahman isn't conscious.
Yeah, they would say that what I'm kind of talking about there is an illusion of duality again. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would.
Yeah. So last thing, I know we talked about this for a while, but the last thing I want to ask you about this, you mentioned the Spirit of God descending into Mary, and that like gives us the illusion of a mechanism for how the Spirit incarnates. It's the illusion of a mechanism because I don't really know what it means that the Spirit of God descended on Mary. But I've been reading a lot of Carl Jung. We've talked about this. I've been reading a lot of Carl Jung, and for some reason, he studied The Alchemist. And one of the things he said, The Alchemist, this is how he described it. He said the alchemists, of course, were trying to turn base metals into gold. And the whole logic there was they believed that everything was constantly transforming and becoming more perfect. And the alchemist's job was to speed up the process. So you could take lead that's not yet gold, but will be after enough time and natural processes. but the alchemists could figure out how to speed that process up and turn the lead into gold and purify it and perfect it and make it something more valuable. And they were like these, really primitive early scientists, and they're kind of like mystical, and they're very interesting characters, these alchemists. And they were trying to figure out how they could, okay, how do I put this? That thing that is transforming nature, they believed that thing to be, they called it the spirit Mercurius, okay? That's the god Mercury, the Roman god Mercury. And you might wonder about that. Like, what is that all about? So Mercury was the messenger of the gods, right? He has wings on his head and on his heels, and he goes up to heaven and down to earth. He's constantly flying back and forth. He's bringing messages. He's the messenger of God. And that's related to the Tower of Babel image, by the way, of the angels go, not Tower of Babel, the Jacob's ladder. Angels going up and down, right? And so this spirit of Mercury is hard to, the spirit of Mercury is the Logos. It is the spirit of God. It's the thing that connects heaven and earth. It's the thing that connects the spirit and matter. The spirit Mercurius, okay? And the alchemists thought this was what was responsible for the transformation of things. And you can understand that if you ever look at Mercury, if you ever play with Mercury, it's constantly changing shape. It fascinates you if you see it. So this was their image. And they thought that if they could get their hands on the spirit of Mercurius, if they could figure out how to get it, then they could do magical things with it. If only I could get that spirit of transformation, if I could pin it down and harness its power, then I could take lead and I could make gold. Then I could make the philosopher's stone. Then I could make the key to eternal life. If only I could grab a hold of that mercurial spirit. So what they wanted to do was figure out, how do we get the spirit so that we can make it do our bidding? And here's the symbol that they came up with for it. They came up with the symbol of a snake or a serpent nailed to a tree. We're going to take the spirit of Mercury, the snake, and we're going to fix it to the matter. We're going to nail it to the matter. And they also used a cross, so nailing a snake to a tree or a cross. And so you get this weird image of the snake from the garden and the crucifixion of Jesus wrapped into one symbol. It's very strange. So I don't exactly know where I was going with this idea, but it's the idea of how does the spirit get transfixed into matter.
So I am tending to think more these days that what we call the Holy Spirit, if you're a Christian or a Bible believer, is probably just, I say just, it is the vibratory force that's running through the universe. It's the matrix. It's the matrix itself. That is the spirit. And that is God. And that is what causes the illusion of the universe being manifest. That is actually the Holy Spirit. I don't think it is so much of a supernatural thing as people think it is. You know, I mean, back in the day, before electricity was created, I mean, it was it Faraday, I think, at the London College. He did an experiment where he had like a coil and a magnet, and across the room, across the other side of the table, not connected, was a needle, and he passed the magnet through the coil and produced an electromagnetic field, and the needle at the other end of the table was moving, even though there was no connection, moving. Yep. And everyone thought that was magic. That's like, what's going on, you know? And yet now we live in a world where there's like microwaves and Wi-Fi and all of that. I think the spirit probably is just an electromagnetic field of some sort.
It's an interesting idea, and just to close the circle on that, if the spirit is part of or identical to the field, the field that we understand to be matter and space.
Yep.
If that's the case, then there is no need to affix the spirit of Mercury to the matter. It already is.
It already is the matter. Yeah, and it's producing the matter. Mariella's just posted. I always thought that John 1:1 was talking about God's purpose. Yep. And then she's also said Isaiah 55:11. My word that goes out of my mouth will not return to me without results. It will certainly accomplish whatever is my delight, and it will have sure success in what I send it to do.
So that is interesting. That's
a good one, isn't it? Isaiah 55:11.
Sorry, what you said, which book?
Isaiah 55, verse 11. I'll just read it again. It says, my word that goes out of my mouth will not return to me without results. It will certainly accomplish whatever is my delight, and it will have sure success in what I send it to do. That's the words of the Lord. Isaiah 55:11.
So, Mariella, the hair standing up on my arms. So I don't know about you, Daniel, but when I hear that, I have a vision. I have a visual, and it is God speaking the word, whatever word that might be, and the word being a being that has a purpose and a will and stands alone, and it won't come back to him until it's done what it meant to do. Yeah. And every word that's spoken from God is a.
Well, I think that is the essence of what John 1:1 is basically saying, that God kind of spoke Jesus into existence. That's effectively what he said. I spoke Jesus into existence, the same way as in Genesis chapter 1, it talks about God speaking everything into existence, doesn't it? Let light come to be, and light came to be. Let this happen, and that happened. Yeah, it's the word of God, but it's not like a word the way that we think of a word. It's more a command. It's a thought process. It's an intent. It's an intent scripturally. Now, whether or not I kind of believe the Bible as that being literal, or whether I would put more of a scientific spin on it, that there is this underlying source that has intent and it produces, or whether the intent actually is the quantum vacuum, from the point of view that if there's nothing, it has to produce something, because that's just the opposite of nothing. Whether there actually is conscious thought going into all of this, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think once there's a manifestation occurred, then you definitely can say there's consciousness there.
Yep, and I think that goes right back to the dualism idea too. I don't think that to be conscious, you have to be aware, and there needs to be something to be aware of. Yep. So being aware is the singular, the first person perspective. Being aware of something, right? That implies another thing. So consciousness requires a dualism, or the illusion of dualism, whichever it is. Yep. But it's one or the other, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if God or Source or the universe or whatever wasn't on that level, you'd just have this kind of blob of nothingness, of no space, no time, no conscious thought, nothing. That's the absence of everything, isn't it? Going back to your quantum vacuum again. So what have we decided there? That we think possibly God, the Spirit of God, the universe, the Holy Spirit, electromagnetism, the waveform, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, the whole thing is one and the same thing?
I think, yes, I think so. But I think the illusion is important. The illusion of dualism is important. It's associated with perception and consciousness and matter and all of the stuff that we experience. And that's interesting in and of itself. It's like it's important that God tricks itself.
Yes.
Right? Like there's a reason for the illusion. It has a purpose, and that's and the Hindus are sensitive to that too. It's like Maya has a purpose.
Yep.
I mean, we could get off in a tangent there as to explaining why that is, but we don't have to. I think we can get to free will. But before we do, I want to add, when you were talking about the word in that passage from Isaiah, I wanted to say that you can't speak a word without breath. Right? Every spoken word requires that slight exaltation. So the Ruach Adonai, the Spirit of God that was breathed into Adam, there's a parallel there to a spoken word, a spoken breath. You know what I mean? Something like that. And the result in Genesis was a standalone human being, an entity of its own. In the Isaiah passage, it seems similar to me. The word spoken out won't come back until it's done what it needs to do.
Yep.
It's exactly that same image to me of the breath going in Adam and bringing Adam to life.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely the scriptural side of things. I think as a Jehovah's Witness, I tended to sort of view things very literal as well. I think these days I view things more allegorical. But I do think there's definitely an actual real process that's going on behind the scenes. And Mariella and I have both said that we don't actually... So many things are classed as supernatural if we don't understand them. If we understood them, we'd just say, oh, it's science.
Right.
You know? So whatever's going on here, God, the spirit, whatever, I think the whole thing is probably understandable. I don't think it's outside the grasp of being understood if we just knew where to look. I think that's it. And I think where everything's really going amiss with the whole quantum side of things is everyone's looking at particles like your electrons and your neutrons, your protons. You've got your quarks and all these particles as being different particles from one another. I watched a documentary a while back. Again, I think that was at the London College. And some physicists are starting to wonder whether or not what they're looking at is the same thing, just from a different angle. Even to the point where, the different fields, like you've got your graviton field and your neutron field and your electron field.
Yes, field. Yep.
Is it just the same field, but just being looked at from a different perspective? And that boils down to even some people think that there may actually just be one particle that's effectively moving so fast that it can be in multiple places at once. In terms of remember the old Etch a Sketches? Do you remember those as a kid? Where you
yes.
And they used to.
Oh yes. Yes. Sure. Yeah. Yes. Etch a Sketch. Yes.
That's it. And it was just like one little tiny bead that sort of moved through time. If you can imagine that it moved through the screen, if you can imagine that being everywhere at once, I suppose it's a little bit like on the old TVs, the old CRT monitors that it used to scan, didn't it? And it was only one beam of light, but it moved so fast that it gave a big picture. So it could actually be that God, whatever God is, whatever the spirit is, it is just one very, very tiny little thing that's moving about every place in the universe simultaneously, painting the picture of the universe.
So I love this. I want to get into this idea more, but earlier I told you that you said something that reminded me of that C.S. Lewis book that I'm reading, that his fictional sci-fi series. And as you were speaking, another one popped in my head, and I want to see if I can read it to you. Hold on, let me see if I can find it quickly.
Because C.S. Lewis was he an atheist and then he became a Christian, or the other way around?
That's a good question. He was definitely a Christian when he was writing all his books and so forth. Hold on.
I think he might have lost his faith at some point because he lost his wife, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I don't know the history. It's a shame. I should probably know it. I don't.
There's a film, I think, called Shadowlands about the life of C.S. Lewis. I think that's C.S. Lewis. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get that.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. So in this book, well, it's sort of difficult. So in this book, the main character finds himself on an alien planet. He's learning about the aliens that live there, including their science and their religion. And there's a sort of a fairy or spiritual type of creature that exists on this other planet, and he's the spirit itself is trying to explain them, and he says body is movement. Body is movement.
Mm-hmm.
He says if it is one speed, you smell something. If at another you hear a sound. If at another you see a sight. But mark this, that the two ends meet. And the guy says, what do you mean? And he says, if movement is faster than that which moves, hold on. If movement is faster than that which moves, then that which moves is more nearly in two places at once.
Uh-huh.
If movement were faster still, the moving thing would be in all places at once.
Yes. Okay. So
Then he says, so fast that it is at rest, so truly body that it has ceased being body at all.
yes, that's exactly what I meant. Yeah. So it's like a bicycle wheel. A bicycle wheel is essentially like it's kind of 99.9% nothing, isn't it? You can put your hand through it. Put your hand through it. You start spinning it, then try putting your hand through it. You can't, because those bicycle spokes are moving so fast that it becomes a solid thing. And that's effectively, I think that's effectively what's going on with atoms, isn't it? They're moving so fast. But they're like 99% nothing, you know? But if you could reduce that down to just one particle, and that one particle was moving so fast through everything. Just read that. Can you read that back again? That bit where he says if it was moving so fast, it would be one place.
Yes, he says if movement is faster, then that which moves is more nearly in two places at once. If movement were faster still, the moving thing would be in all places at once.
Yeah.
So fast that it is at rest, so truly body that it has ceased to be body.
And I'm going to say that the speed that you're probably looking at there is light speed.
Mm.
It's probably that physical barrier that we can't reach that point. And that's why everything seems to be solid.
So funny. God, man. You got to read this book. You really got to read this book.
What's that book called again? That's C.S. Lewis.
It's called the Space Trilogy, so it's real easy. The first book is called Out of the Silent Planet, and the second book is called Paralandra, and it's even better. It's even better, man. You gotta read it.
He was a bright guy, wasn't he, old C.S. Lewis?
Yes.
C.S. Lewis. So that's duality. We think it's an illusion,
but a necessary one. A necessary one. Yeah. And I would reduce it down to it being just one particle that's in every place at once, or is going so fast it appears to be in every place at once. And it's the vibration, and it's the manifestation all at once. And that is essentially Brahman manifest. That's what I hold on, slow down. Pump the brakes for a second before we move on. Let me just think about this. A particle, I'm imagining the particle is God.
Yeah.
Self-contained and complete, self-sufficient. I'm imagining like a glowing orb is what I'm imagining. That's all that exists, God.
Well, I would say that's God manifest.
Okay.
God unmanifest, or Brahman unmanifest, wouldn't even be the electron.
Yes.
The quark.
Okay. So, but the idea that God, whatever that is moving so fast that it's in all places at once.
Yep.
In a way, that means that there's an infinite number of gods, right? If it's in all places in an infinite space, then you could divide up space into discrete chunks. God would be in every one of them. So God would be one in many simultaneously, by virtue of being fast enough. That's really interesting.
I wouldn't say it's in reality it's in every place at once. But it's going so fast it appears that. So use an example of a computer for a moment, yeah? So when you've got a computer, it will a computer program, for example. Let's say you've got a computer and you've got like 4 programs running, yeah? You think you've got 4 programs running, but in actual fact you haven't. What's actually happening is the CPU is given memory to this program, and then to this one, then to this one, then to this one, then back to the first one. It's jumping between the 4 programs, but it's going so fast. It kind of, you could have like YouTube and Twitter next to each other working away, and you think, oh, they're both working together simultaneously. They're not. The memory is split between the two, and I think like these days we've got like quad core CPUs and 8 core CPUs and that sort of thing. Then you're then up to kind of each core is then dealing with a different program of its own sort of thing. It's not as simple as that, but
yeah.
But effectively, if you've got like a God particle, as it were, it would be spreading itself out through the universe at all the places it needs to be so quick that the whole thing appears to be working together. This is why I think, from a conscious level, like if we don't need to be seeing something and processing something, like right now I'm not in the UK. I don't need to see the UK. I don't need to see anything that's happening in the UK. To me, that part of the program isn't accessible right now. It's offline. It's like in a computer game where as you move through a computer simulation game, all the possibilities of XYZ coordinates and what would be at that coordinates is in the program. It's all programmed into it, and it could even be kind of it could even be that certain coordinates, there's nothing exists until you get to that point in the game. You get to the XYZ coordinate in the game, and then it runs a function that creates a scenery around you. Yeah. Yep. So I think the idea, reality, in terms, if it is like an electron that's bouncing around or a quark that's bouncing around, I think it only bounces around as much as it needs to. I don't think it's going to be everywhere or simultaneously all at once. It's only going to be in the places it needs to, like that CRT scan on the screen. It's only going to be in the places it needs to be. If it's a black area of the picture, it won't shine on it.
Right. Yeah, I still like the idea that even if it's an illusion that it's in 2 places at once, the perception is that it is, and so that's the illusion of duality right there. Yep. And I just like that, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's like a computer that does multitasking, so it appears to be doing more than one thing, but in actual fact it's not. It's just doing one thing very quickly. I like that. That's good. We need to write a white paper on that. Okay, so have we done duality to death now?
I think so. We've done that. I have a question for you before we jump over to free will.
Yeah, because I've got a thought I want to run past you about free will.
Yes, I definitely want to. This is just a silly question I want to ask you before I lose a spot to do it. So it's Saturday here, and Saturday is college football day in the States. We love our college football, American football. I do myself. And then it occurred to me that I didn't know if there was a parallel with soccer with soccer in England. So this is a completely a question from ignorance. Do universities have soccer teams the college football teams here do?
Yeah.
Okay. And you fill stadiums with people to watch college.
I don't know if it's that big, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, the big thing when it comes to colleges and universities tends to be rowing.
Rowing?
Yeah, there's the Cambridge University and the Oxford University. Every year they have a boat race down a river.
That sounds like some Ivy League stuff. That sounds like some Harvard boys would do over here.
I could be wrong. I'm not a particularly big sports person.
Okay.
But football in general is like absolutely, it's the nation's game, isn't it? Football. And then I'm over in now I'm in Australia. I'm not sure what it is over here. Cricket, maybe.
They do. What is it? There's Australian rules football, right? Isn't there like a rugby football type of thing that they do?
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, and they've got all their trying to. It's funny. I love living here, but some of the things are like really alien to me. It's just.
Such as?
Oh, just it's weird little things like we haven't got any radiators. You open the window and it's hotter with the window open than it is with the window closed. Things like in the UK, the postman walks up your drive and puts the letters through a letter box. Well, they call it a letter box. It's actually a hole in the door, which lets all the rain and the cold in. So it puts it through there, and you find your post on the floor in the morning. Here, you have to walk down to the end of down to the front of the road, and pick up like in one of those little mail boxes. Yeah. And they don't even, I don't know if you have where you are, whether they have like a little flag that they put up to say that there's mail in the box. No, they don't do that here.
No, they don't? Okay.
No, you just have to go down there every day and there's no more mail. Yeah.
So I'll tell you, it's what you're describing, where you have an opening in the door, a little metal flap, slip the mail into it.
Yep.
That I've seen it, like I know about it, but it's very old fashioned. So here in the States, the idea that the postman would come and put the mail into the door, it sounds like something that would happen in an old movie, but doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And there are old neighborhoods where the mailbox is not at the street. It's on the house. So the mailman will come to the house. He'll open up the lid of the little metal box, which is the case in my house.
Oh, it's a little box. A box.
It's a little metal box bolted to the house with my address on it. He opens it up and sticks the mail in. And if I put the flag up, it means I have mail in there for him to take with him.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So in the UK and in Australia, you don't get your mail collected. You have to go to the post office or pop it in a post box.
That's why America's the greatest country in the world.
America's amazing. Oh, and the other thing that's a right pain in the butt is Amazon. It's absolutely crap in Australia.
Really?
It's like, yeah. I mean, there's hardly any choice compared to what I had in the UK. And when you order stuff, it takes like weeks to arrive, some of it.
Really?
Absolutely weeks. You know, like I ordered a drill bit 2 weeks ago and it's going to come at the end of October.
That's unacceptable, man. Unacceptable.
And that's on Prime. That's with Amazon Prime. It's like
unbelievable.
Yeah. And Australian TV. I'm sorry, fellow Australians. Australian TV is rubbish.
Rubbish.
It's really bad.
I haven't the slightest. I've never seen it.
It's really bad. Yeah. Right. So I've got this idea I want to run past you.
Yes, please.
I've been dying to run this idea past you. So, free will. Okay. See if I can explain this. Sometimes it seems to me that when I do certain things, even if I kind of consciously think, shall I do this or shall I not do this? There's kind of a moment, almost at the last minute, where the decision is actually made. Shall I make a cup of tea? Shall I not make a cup of tea? Yeah. Shall I stand up? Shall I not stand up? There's a moment where the decision is made, but I almost don't feel like I'm in control of that decision at that point. It kind of just happens, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. Almost as if I'm the way I'm going to try and explain this is like a tree branching out, okay? Like a family tree branching out. So if you imagine you're at a particular point in space and time, and there are three possibilities. You can go forward, you can go right, you can go left. I tend to think, like if I go right, well, I decided to go right, and left and forward were just choices that were not made, yeah. Even though even then it still feels quite instinctive, I've done that, but logic would say if I could go back to that point in space and time again, I could choose forward or left. But
right,
it almost feels like, I've gone right and that's the only decision I could have made. So what I'm starting to think is when you're at a point in space and time where there's like, let's say just three options, but obviously there's infinite number of options. Could it be that every option actually occurs? Every single option occurs. I do go forward. I do go left. I do go right. But what it is that is becoming my reality of having gone right is it's almost like it's not the quantum field as such that's collapsed, but it's the consciousness field has collapsed for this stream of consciousness going right. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's another version of me that went forward that feels equally as conscious as I do, and another version that's gone left that feels equally conscious as I do. So you've got sort of the multiverse idea, yeah? But it's actually the consciousness itself that is splitting at each point, yeah?
Okay.
The other thing on that, I mean, this is a bit of a side point, but you and I have got like a friendship. You know, our minds are kind of connected to each other. We're talking to each other. The same thing, you know, like with my dad, my mum, my sister, my old friends, etc. Yeah. Like my mum has died. So in this conscious universe, it's like that connection is no longer there. But if I was to backtrack down that branch, there's going to be infinite number of other possibilities where my mum didn't die that day. She's still out there in one of the universes, and there's still a version of me with this consciousness, but it's a different sort of fractal instance of that consciousness. It's still interacting with her, and because I've split off from that point in space and time, but I still have a connection somewhere with the other versions of me, even if it's kind of subconscious.
Okay.
So, you know, like when you sort of get the feeling that, you know, there's a dead loved one nearby, or you still feel connected, or, you know, you have a dream. Like I'm always having dreams about my mum and she's telling me stuff in my dreams. Is that like a bleed through from, is there like a connection, albeit electromagnetic again or whatever? Is there a faint connection between all those other possibilities? So I would say free will from that perspective doesn't actually exist, from the point of view that when you get to the point, every choice is made, and your consciousness just continues down one path that, you know, for this version of me.
That's very interesting. So
have I explained that?
You've solved the problem of free will in a very interesting way I've never heard before. And I think you alluded to this, but I'll just say it for the audience. There's a physicist whose name was Everett, and I can't remember his full name, but his type of his understanding of physics they call it Everettian because of his name, right? So the Everettian understanding of this sort of multiple universe or multiple dimensions description that you just gave us is that when a quantum event happens, every possible outcome of that event occurs. It's not just the one that you saw, but every possible outcome. And what that means is that the universe split off at that moment into a certain number of different directions for each possibility. So it's called the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. Yep. So every one of those potentials created a whole new world where that happened. And what you're saying here is that every choice you could have made happened, right? Every choice you could have made happened.
Yep.
So free will doesn't have any context. It couldn't exist in that frame of mind, which is brilliant. I've never heard that before.
And it's the same consciousness that has branched off into this reality, that has branched off into the other reality, the other one, and so on. If I was in any of those other realities, I would still feel like me, just me having made a different choice. Yeah.
So there's
that comes back to the idea that probably if I was you, if I was in your body now, I'd probably still feel like me.
Yeah.
I might express myself differently, you know? I might think slightly differently because my biological makeup will be different. But that sense of the I amness, who I am, would still be the same. And I think that probably is the case across all these multiple different versions of me that's made different choices.
I think that is the case. There's this thing that people say that's true, that I think Aldous Huxley said it. He said that conscious beings are island universes. And the idea is that we're contained. I can't know what it's like to be Daniel, and Daniel can't know what it's like to be me. We're where island universes completely cut off from each other. There's no interaction possible. And there's something true about that because we have a private, personal experience. We think of it as private. You can't hear my inner thoughts. You don't know my emotions or opinions or whatever. However, I believe the spirit that animates my body is the spirit that animates your body.
Yeah, exactly.
And what it feels like to be me is what it feels like to be you.
And it's the same. It's the same spirit that is going to animate different versions of me in different alternate realities. Now, I ran this idea past Mariella last night. She got it as well. She was like, yeah. And she said, have you ever felt like a version of you, from a day-to-day point of view, you probably don't really notice the different versions of you splitting off. It's very seamless. You just sort of feel like you're going through life. But sometimes something very dramatic happens in your life, and it's almost like it shifts. Like there's a real big shift, and you suddenly feel that you've been knocked sideways, and you're actually on a new trajectory altogether. And it's so extreme that you actually feel like an old version of you has died. You don't actually even feel like the same version of you anymore. It's like, so like with code, just to use computer code as an example, again, when you're doing like a GitHub update, you might do a little tiny change and it goes from version 1 to version 1.01, version 1.02, version 1.03, little tiny changes. No one really notices. It's all in the background, yeah? But then suddenly you do an upgrade and you jump to version 2 and it's like, whoa, hang on. something just moved there. I think I've had that experience a few times. I think back in November I had that experience where it just felt like an old life had kind of gone, into a little box, and I was a new me, a reborn version that is kind of upgraded, and it's like it just feels like you've parted company with the previous version of yourself.
Does it feel? Is there a mournful aspect where it feels to you like something died? Some version of you died? Does that like resonate with you?
For me, I would say it's more exhilarating than depressing. It's like a version of, oh, okay, this is me. And looking back on the past events, they seem quite alien, almost as if they didn't happen. The people that used to be in my life, I've still got memories of them, but they just don't seem as real and part of my life anymore.
Yes.
I think I don't know, but I think that's what Mariella was trying to explain. She said it's almost a bit like, when you're watching a TV and the TV glitches from it, the picture goes out a bit and then it comes back in. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm there. It's like there's a little glitch in the Matrix, just for a moment, sends you sideways.
100%. No, I mean, I told you before about my own mystical experiences, and I had two that were particularly powerful, and they were experiences like that, where when I came through the other side of those experiences, I was a different person. So I saw the world with new eyes. Things were fascinating to me. Would you say you were a new person, or would you say that
See, for me, I don't feel like I'm a different person. I feel like I'm the same person, but I've shed layers of myself that were unnecessary.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think the thing that stands out as the most profound to me is it's like, yes, I'm the same person. There's like a consistency in my memories and my face and my personality and my values and so forth. Although some of that stuff changed. It's how would I describe it? It's a change in the way I see the world. It's like I'm the same me looking at the events happening around me, but they don't mean what they meant before.
That's it.
So it's almost like the world changed.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
And when that happens like quite drastically, quite quickly, it can be a bit disorienting.
100%. Yes.
You just think, where am I? You know, I still walk out, you know, down to my little letterbox outside, and I look around and think, what am I doing here in Australia? This is amazing. How did this happen? You know, it's so bizarre. Yeah. So that's one. I don't know if that's covered everything, but I've got another.
Hold on.
Go on.
I'm going to recap for you my take on free will before we leave the subject. But I don't want to interrupt you if there's something.
No. I just in a moment I'd like to get on to your views on a couple of films that I've been watching.
Fantastic. All right. Well, before we do that, while I'm telling you this, stop me if you remember me telling you this before. But this won't surprise you at all. But the idea is, I believe deeply, profoundly, fundamentally that we're all God. That everything that exists is God.
Yep, absolutely.
And that has all kinds of weird implications when you start thinking what it could mean.
Mm-hmm.
And free will is an interesting question to talk about from that frame. So it's like, if everything is God, and God, this is kind of it almost seems like a naive thing to say, but you'll get it what I mean. God knows what will happen before it happens. It's God's plan. The world is unfolding according to God's plan. He's its creator. He's its destination. Nothing is a surprise to God. He knows everything, right? So nothing is going to happen that wasn't his plan.
Yep.
This is a traditional religious viewpoint. So if that's the case, then I can't have free will personally.
No.
If that's the case, that everything that will happen, everything that I will do, God already knows.
Yep.
Because in some sense that means that it's already planned. It's deterministic in some way that's beyond me.
Yep.
And it's hard to get around that if you believe everything I just laid out.
Yep.
If you believe that God is everything and that God knows everything that will happen before it happens. But here's the twist on the free will thing that I like. And it is that even if God knows everything that's going to happen, whatever God's decision is that I'm playing out in the world, that I'm acting out in the world, is God's choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm God acting out God's choice, does it matter that I'm something like a puppet in this situation, or am I?
No.
It's just the will of God being expressed.
Right. So if God is all potentiality, what you're experiencing is just God's choices. Even if maybe God hasn't even got a free will, but it's a branch of potentiality that you're experiencing.
Mm.
But God potentially is every possibility. So this is just one version of a universe of God. Yeah.
Yes.
All the other ones. So God is essentially everything all at once. Everything.
Yes.
And no, I don't think it matters that you're a puppet, because I think this is just a case of you're along for the ride. To be honest, I'm along for the ride. I'm just along for the experience.
But if my choices are God's choices, I don't care if they're free or not, right? I don't care if that's God's choice, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think some people go about life without really thinking about it, and they just drift along like a sort of leaf on a stream. You know, they don't really make any choices. It's just what happens, sort of thing. Yeah. Some people are a little bit more thoughtful when it comes to things, and they think they make choices. You know, but I think probably what's just happening there is you're thinking about the options. And your intention tends to focus on one particular option more than another. You know, should I go for a run, or should I eat that cake? The cake looks good. Right. You know, yes. Maybe what you're doing there is you're providing a feedback loop to whatever God or source or consciousness is behind all this, and it's just knocking your consciousness in that direction. You know, It's the old attraction and manifestation thing again, isn't it? But it's like just coming back to that with the free will, you know, when you stand in front of a mirror and you kind of raise your hand in front of a mirror, and you see yourself raising your hand in front of a mirror. Right. The actual reflection that you're seeing, you think it's happening kind of simultaneously with you, but it's not. It's happening slower.
Right.
Because the lights had, it's taking time to reach the mirror, bounce back, go into your eye, go to the back of your head, make a signal in the brain. I wonder whether it's kind of almost that sort of thing. It's like we are the result of a decision that God has made. So our higher self, God, whatever, for this branch of reality has made that decision. We can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about it, You might be able to, if you really focus on something, you might be able to give it a little bit of a nudge in a certain way so that your consciousness jumps onto the other track, so to say. But I think every possibility is playing out, and we don't have free will, no.
There's this idea that kept popping in my head, and every time I would pop in my head, it would go. What was it? Oh boy.
Because you've got the morality issue as well, haven't you? If there's no such thing as free will, can you really put someone in prison for, murdering someone or stealing from someone? I think you can, because it's not really about. It doesn't even really matter about the morality or the whether or not you're going to be able to get that person. What's the word I'm looking for? When they put people in prison, they try to make them better. Begins with
rehabilitate.
Rehabilitate. Doesn't really matter. The reason you're putting them in prison is just to keep them out of the way of everybody else.
Right. If you say that somebody is not responsible for their actions because they're determined, that doesn't mean that their actions are acceptable or socially acceptable, right?
Correct. That's it. Yeah. Correct.
You don't get off because you didn't have a choice.
Correct. So if you've got someone who's mental, that's going around like, clinically mental, it's not their fault. They're just clinically mental, and they're going around murdering everybody. You can't just say, well, they're clinically mental, so we'll just let them get off with it.
Right.
Can you? They might not have any free will. It might just be an instinctive thing that's done. But, you've got to do something with them. And you might put them in a position where they're like cared for a little bit better than they would maybe in a prison. I mean, I used to, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, they're big on the preaching and what have you, and we used to preach everywhere, like prisons. Jehovah's Witnesses go door to door preaching, don't they? But they also go into prisons, they go into mental homes, and I used to be a pastor for effectively for the mental home. There was a high security mental institution, and it was people that they were in a mental home because they were mentally ill. It was a hospital, but they were there because they'd done criminal acts. So they murdered people, killed people, raped people, all sorts. Yeah.
How much time have you spent there?
Oh, I did that for a few years. Yeah.
Wow.
I used to go in I think it was a Wednesday. I used to go in and kind of we had certain ones that would contact the local congregation and say, I'm in a mental home, and I'm interested in religion. And I think one of the things they do actually, when you go in there, they say, have you got a religion? And a lot of times I'm pretty sure they say, if you've got a religion, you kind of get extra visits, from a pastor. And if you're locked in a mental hospital or even a prison, you want as many visits as possible, don't you? So they say, I don't know, pick a religion. And we used to get like, can you come in and visit patient number whatever? Yeah. But, they were in a terrible mess, some of those people. And it was like when they were on their medication, they were kind of, they knew what they'd done, and they were really remorseful for what they had done. But if they weren't on the meds, I mean, there was one guy I went in, I had a nice little Bible study with him, and thought everything was fine. And then the next day he was in the paper for stabbing one of the wardens, one of the hospital wardens, in the throat with a biro.
Oh my God. And you
I was like praying with him and reading the Bible with him the day before, and you think, God, yeah.
Man.
Because when you go in, they say, like you actually go into the room with them, and they make the patient sit in the corner on a chair, and then the warden sits kind of between you and them, and then you sit kind of near the door. So if the person jumps up to go for you, basically the warden springs on them and the door opens and you run out. Yeah.
Jesus, man. Brave
But
soul.
I don't think you can say like, oh well, they haven't got free will, so just let them off. You can't, for the sake of everybody else. You got to put them somewhere, And if they've made determinate choices to go and murder somebody, if it's premeditated and they haven't got a mental health issue, throw them in prison and throw the key away. But if it's a case of they weren't in their right mind at the time, then I think you're probably looking at a mental hospital, aren't you? I mean, the ones in the mental hospital, even ones that are murdered that were mental, they do eventually get out. It's not necessarily a life sentence. They could get out within 7 years. So it is possible, but they'd have to prove that they're not mental anymore, mentally unstable. But there's not many get out within 7 years. The wardens were saying a lot of them they're just there for good,
Did you learn anything about human nature from that experience with the crazies? Any?
Yeah, insofar as you see them kind of drugged up on medication, so they're very numb. It's like they're kind of walking uphill in treacle mentally, like when they're trying to speak to you. But it's like you're looking at somebody and there's definitely like a soul, a person inside that sort of shell, and everything is just slowed down with the medication. It's like they desperately want to get out of it, It's quite sad, actually. Yeah, it's quite sad. And I think the thing is, you sort of look at these people and you think, that could be me. That could be me, If I was born into a different body and a different brain, I could be a murderer.
I think that's the key. What you just said there is the key to like proper empathy, and also to remain humble. Is anytime you encounter somebody that you pity or somebody that you think you're better than, anytime you have that feeling, that's what you should tell yourself.
Yeah,
that could be me. That could be me. That is you.
Well, this is it. That is you. And if we're saying that there's only one consciousness, it's the same one consciousness that's shining on that body, that body and brain that is somehow just not working properly. And it's receiving the signals. It's receiving the exact same consciousness that you and I are, but it's reflecting it in a different way. And that even goes for bad people, evil people. You look at sort of Hitler. You go, evil person. But if I'd have been born as Hitler, with Hitler's body and Hitler's brains and Hitler's background, little mustache, I'd have probably done the same thing. It's terrible to think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awful to think.
That's something Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, he says often, because he studied the basically the tragedies that happened because of communism across the world. And he just basically says, like, would you imagine that you would be somebody in Nazi Germany, realize how terrible things were, and you would resist, but people in Nazi Germany didn't resist. People in Nazi Germany were going with the program, and you would have been just the same. You would have been just the same. Yep. You think you're a hero, you think you're brave, you would have been doing exactly the same thing. Yeah,
that's it. It sort of goes full circle with the old free will. That's why I think sometimes we have to be a bit, I wouldn't say excuse our bad conduct in the past. If we've done things that, now we think, wish I'd not done that. Don't excuse it. But I do think we need to be forgiving of ourselves. If we sort of move to a point in our life and we look back and say, I wish I'd not done that. Whether it's relationships or, sort of decisions that you've taken that maybe hurt other people, that sort of thing. You be remorseful, do what you can to sort of repair any damage you've done, sort of thing. But I don't think you should be overly hard on yourself, because given the same circumstances all over again, you'd probably make the same decision.
Right.
It's at the end of the day, thought processes are, I think, however much that consciousness on the outside is working on the body and brain, you've still got a biological aspect there, haven't you? You're still talking about atoms, electrons moving around, neurons in a brain. Because there's a theory, isn't there? If you knew the location of every atom in the universe, every particle in the universe, you'd be able to predict with certainty what was going to happen next.
Right.
Although with the many worlds principle, I don't know whether that would work. Yeah, have we done that one? Have we done free will? I think so. Can I come on to? Can I just mention a couple of movies that I've been watching recently? And
Absolutely.
Just get your view on it?
Let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's
something
do
a
that.
little bit lighter. So I watched Deja Vu last night. Have you seen that? With Denzel Washington.
It's been a long time. You have to refresh my memory, but I did see that. I'm pretty sure.
So the idea is that the government has created a machine which effectively takes, that time is represented as like a linear process. Okay, but what they've done is so this is the past, this is the future, but they've made this machine where what they can basically do is curve time back on itself, so that the now is actually touching the past.
Okay.
For both people, it's now, and this machine shows them 4 days ago. Yeah. Now it's all based around, at the beginning of the film. Spoiler alert! At the beginning of the film, there's like a terrorist attack and a load of people die. Yeah. And the police guy is trying to find the bomber that did it. And he gets introduced to this machine where he can look at a screen, basically, and he can see what was happening 4 days ago. And he's like blown away by this, because they can zoom in on actual places, like a house or a corner of a street or whatever, and see exactly what's happening 4 days ago. And what they're saying is this machine is it's a digital reproduction of what was happening 4 days ago. But they're saying there's so much data there that they're not able to store the data. It is just a live stream like we're doing now. Okay. Which is interesting, because our live stream is actually, anyone watching this now, you're watching what we were saying 20 seconds ago, because there's a delay. Yeah. So it's that sort of similar principle. But they say, they can't have the storage to be able to, they can't keep the data. They can't go back and look at other data. If they select a particular point to look at 4 days ago, that's all they can see as a moving point. Yeah. And this police guy, he's a little bit skeptical about this, because when he's looking at the screen, the person on the screen from 4 days ago seems to know that they're being watched. They've just got that eerie feeling that they're being watched. And eventually he takes one of those laser pointers and he points it at the screen, and the light actually makes it through into the past. Oh, and he says, shit. This is not this. You're hiding something from me here. This is not just a video feed of 4 days ago. And they come clean and they say, no, it's this machine that we've built where we're actually turning the past around. So that actually is the present for that person back then. Mm-hmm. And then they start doing all sorts of weird stuff where he's like, if you can get a light beam back, can you get like a post-it note with a little message on it that says there's going to be a terrorist attack in 4 days' time? Or could you even get in the machine yourself and go to that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? And that was all about this branching universe theory again. Mm-hmm. The old paradoxes of if you did go back, would there be two of you?
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's you've heard of that idea, like the Einstein-Rosen bridge, where space can be pulled over onto itself, so you can travel, across the galaxy in a short period of time. But that movie just does it with time. That's really interesting. I definitely saw that movie, but it's been a long enough time. I think
it's brilliant. And there's a scene in it where he so they've got the machine, they've got the screens in the sort of surveillance room, yeah. And they managed to find the perpetrator of the terrorist attack. They managed to find him on the screen, and they're following him on the screen. But then he starts going further away from them, from their location, and it only works within a certain location. So what they've got a car. Well, it's like a Humvee with a mobile version of this machine that you stick on your head. And he jumps in the car and he goes chasing off, driving this car with this machine on his head. And like out of one eye, he can see everything that's happening now.
God.
And out of the other eye, he's seeing a feed of what happened 4 days ago. So he's driving down the highway and there's vehicles that aren't even there now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like a really mind-bending.
Oh, yeah.
Mind-bending.
Sounds like a good one.
It was a good one.
I'm going to have to rewatch it.
Yeah, go and watch that one. That's no need now. I've explained it all, haven't I? The other one is I just wanted to get your view in the last sort of 10 minutes on the Tom Hanks movies with produced by Tom Hanks and Ron Howard, I believe, based on Dan Brown's books, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and Inferno. So the Da Vinci Code is the idea that there was a Holy Grail, but it wasn't a cup. It was a female.
You betcha.
And that female was Mary Magdalene. And then the Angels and Demons is all about the Illuminati, that the Catholic Church drove the Illuminati that were all about science and reason, drove them into the ground, and they basically became enemies of the church. That's the other one. And then the final one, which I'm not sure you've watched, is Inferno, is all about Dante's 9 circles of hell. So shall we start with the Da Vinci one? Have you had any thoughts on whether or not Jesus ever got married to Mary Magdalene, and is there a bloodline that could be traced?
Well, it's very interesting. I would say that the most compelling evidence that I've heard is not very compelling at all, and it's just that a Jew in the first century Palestine of Jesus's age would have been married. Even if he were a rabbi, he would have been married. It's
I agree.
very, very unlikely that he wouldn't have been.
Yep.
So, I think that it's hard. It's difficult to argue with that, even though there's no evidence in the Gospels apart from a certain interpretation of his relationship with Mary Magdalene. So it's a possibility for sure. And so the idea that Jesus might have a lineage on Earth today, that there might be people sharing the DNA of Jesus, I think in practical reasons, I don't think that is any different. I mean, I don't think there's God DNA in there. I don't think there's any kind of special. Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't. This goes back to what I said kind of at the beginning. I don't know that there's a difference between what's described as an incarnation.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jesus or you or I.
Yeah.
I
said that I said that in one of my podcasts the other day. I said I don't think Jesus is any more special or a son of God than any one of us is a manifestation of whatever the source is that underlies reality. That's
it, as Daniel would say. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, no, I think so. I think you're probably right there that if there probably is a lineage somewhere. It's totally reasonable. There could be, but I don't think you'd sort of be particularly able to tell that they're any different than anybody else.
And here's the thing: if you track down living descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, if you track them down in the 21st century, do you think they would be princes and Gandhis and Mother Teresa's, or do you think they would be crack addicts in San Francisco living on the street?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Just as easily be the latter.
Just as easily.
Yeah.
Just as easily.
And that's the reason why in this Dan Brown book, the Catholic Church were so keen to kind of quash the idea, because they don't like the idea that Jesus would have had a person that went on to be just a normal guy. It takes the the godness out of the equation, doesn't it?
It diminishes the symbol. It's like this is a silly thing, but it reminds me of the Christian Bale Batman. Where he's talking about becoming a symbol. You know what I mean? It's like it's impersonal, and it's powerful because it's impersonal. Batman strikes fear into the villains, even if he's not there. All you got to do is put a little bat up on the moon, and they're terrified. The symbol is very powerful, and so Jesus as a symbol is very powerful. But it's easy to undermine that with all of the dregs of human existence.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, that they would have a problem with the idea of Jesus actually having an actual wife. I guess because particularly with the Catholic point of view, the whole idea is that the Christian Church itself, the body of Christ, is the bride of Christ, the wife of Christ. Because pretty much every god that I've come across in mythology, they've all got a wife, haven't they? Even like Yahweh had Ashtoreth.
Sure, yeah, right.
As a wife, and in some instances, I think she was actually depicted as his mother for a period of time. Yeah, but there's always this sort of consort that goes along with the god. So the idea that Jesus wouldn't have an actual wife, I don't think there's a problem there. So Da Vinci Code, the other one was Angels and Demons. Now, what do you know about the Illuminati? This is something I'm going to start looking into soon. People of reason and science, I believe, and they kind of got driven underground at some point by the Catholic Church again.
Right. Yeah, I don't know much of the history there apart from just having read the book, but it's been some time ago. What I remember from that book was wasn't that the one with the antimatter bomb?
That was the last one. That was the what was it? Hold on a minute. No, yes, you're correct. Yes, it's the antimatter bomb. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And the anagrams or whatever they're called, were the
earth, wind, fire, and what
Yes.
have you. And there was like 4 cardinals that were being nominated as the next pope.
Yeah.
And someone was basically fabricating that there was an Illuminati that was killing off all the Pope candidates. And
it turns out
it was just a guy that kind of wanted to be the next Pope. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. I can't see that. Was that film actually filmed in the Vatican? I can't see it was. I can't see they'd have let them in with all those ideas.
I'm going to say one of the things that are cliche, but the book was way better than the film. Angels and Demons. It was my favorite Dan Brown book. Apart from he had one that before he got famous. I think it was called Deception Point. Did you?
No, not seen that one. I've heard of it. I've not read that one.
Yeah. Just the gist of it is these group of scientists in Australia, in Antarctica. Find a meteor buried in the ice, and when they get it out, there's signs of life on the meteor. So they have proof of alien life, and there's this big, to do about it. And it turns out that it was all kind of fabricated, but like the whole story is really compelling until the end when you find out that it was kind of a hoax. But it was really interesting, and it's exactly like Dan Brown's style, really short. It's really good. Deception Point.
That's a good one. Yeah. So Illuminati. Do we think they're at work in the world? Do you think there is? Do you think there are underground movements? Illuminati sort of secret societies that are actually controlling things. I don't know. I've got a friend that says he definitely thinks there's bigger things afoot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of whether today the motivation to have a secret society would be to protect yourself from the Catholic Church, or you know what I mean? Like I don't know that the Illuminati, as it would have existed, let's say in the Middle Ages or something, it exists in any way today. But I do think that there's very wealthy people that have power and ability to pull strings, and the thing about rich people is that they think that they are rich because they're better than you. And I don't want to say that like a blanket statement that rich people are bad or terrible or think you're terrible. What I mean is people who have accomplished a lot, a lot, and have been successful, they come to sort of believe their own legend that they are successful because they deserve it, because they worked harder than you, because they're smarter than you, because they saw something you didn't see. There's an elitism that goes on, and those people think that they know best. And so when it comes to the direction of the future, politics, society, how we're organized and structured, I do think that there are very rich people that think that, and maybe more than think, that they should be the ones guiding that process. And if only we would listen to the smart people, they would make it better. They would make life in the world better.
It's interesting though. Sometimes rich and wealthy is confused for smart, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. Yes.
So you got Da Vinci Angels. The last one I watched last night was Inferno. That was the one with the virus, and it was basically tracking down clues to try and find this pathogen that was going to destroy the world. And he was doing so by following clues that were in the Dante's 9 Circles of Hell.
I gotta see this one.
Right. So what I'd like to do, if it's all right with you, we'll come back and do another podcast. How would you feel about next time doing a podcast about symbology? I think that would be right up your alley.
It would be.
If we were both to go away and separately see if we can look up some ancient symbols, it might be the cross, it might be sort of snakes on trees and all those sort of things. Look up some symbols. There might even be some symbols that are used in everyday life now that have got some kind of ancient, mythical kind of secret society sort of meaning.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do that.
So you're gonna pick some, and I'm gonna pick some. And
you pick some, and I pick some. Yeah, and we'll see if we can put them up on screen.
I love it.
I think that'd be good.
Let's do it.
And the other one I'd like to do, if we can do this as well, maybe sort of do that as one half, and then the other half. What can you find out about different versions of hell? So different depictions of hell. I know the Buddhist depictions are particularly gruesome, really, and that surprised me because I always thought Buddhists were like, really quiet and calm. But if you look at the Buddhist depictions of hell, crumbs, they're terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. There's some cogs turning upstairs, so that would be good. I think that would be very good.
So that brings us to the end of our 2 hours. We've decided that duality is an illusion, but it's a necessary one. That's what we've decided. And everything is God. Everything is God. Yeah, God is the container and what is contained within the container. God is everything. Correct. Yeah, or God or source or whatever you want to call it. We've decided that there might just be one electron jumping around all over the place, like C.S. Lewis said, really, really fast, so it appears like that. We've decided Deja Vu is a great film.
Yes.
Go and watch it again. And we've decided free will is probably not a thing. Probably not a thing. But you should still be locked up if you're mental.
Another necessary illusion.
Another necessary illusion, and the 3 Dan Brown books are brilliant. They're better as books than they are as films.
Yes.
That's awesome. I'm going to run the end credits. Thank you, Chris. And if you stay on, and we'll have a little chat after.
All right,
buddy. Daniel. So thanks for joining us. We had a few people on the live stream there. Thanks for joining us. Come back and see me and Chris again soon. Bye for now.